Let's get into it. The first one I want to mention is something that I saw in Ukraine, which is where soldiers were wrapping their muzzles with tape. Why? The bunkers are filthy, and if dirt and mud and grime finds its way into the rifle, when you go to fire it, it could rupture and blow up your weapon. So they put the tape over the muzzle, preventing that from happening. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't they going to throw off the ballistics at that first round? I don't think so. If anything, it's going to be negligible. And at the same time, an AK-74 only has an accurate range of about 450 meters. It's okay. It's not going to affect it that much. Trust. Moving on. Tourniquets, medical kit. One thing that I noticed when I got to Ukraine was that nobody had their tourniquets on their ankles. That's something that I did when I was in Syria and Iraq and as well as the Marine Corps. And the reason for that is that in Ukraine, there's a lot of mines. And what happens if a mine blows up on your foot and takes the tourniquet that's meant for that leg with it because it's on the ankle? So although you have an ankle pocket on a lot of the combat uniforms that you can buy, nobody keeps the tourniquets on their ankles anymore. They always keep them within the torso level. Here's one that I've probably said before, maybe like 2 years ago, but tape up everything. If you have a backpack, I don't have a backpack with me. Okay. Well, if you have a backpack, tape up all the straps. If you're hiking in the woods, how many times has your backpack gotten caught on branches and bushes? Well, that can get you killed when you're dodging artillery and when you're dodging, running away from an FPV. So strap that up. Make sure there's nothing loose, nothing can snag on branches. And all it takes sometimes is putting some tape around the strap. So yeah, it's a simple one. It's something you're taught as a soldier, but just want to reiterate it. Next one, which is definitely advanced, is if you're in Ukraine, don't dig your position exactly where the commander says. The commander's going to look at a map, not even be there on the front line, and he's going to say, I want you guys to go there and dig it right there. And he's going to point on the map, and for him, it's job done. But you need to think as a soldier, is that a good place to build it? I remember when we were digging a position, our commander did that. And it wasn't exactly his fault, but the people who went there to dig at first took it very literal on the exact position he wanted. And they ended up digging this position not on top of a hill, but on top of the smaller hill that's in front of the hill. Does that make sense? It was awful. So don't do that. That's where I'm digging right here. That is that position. It's not a good position. And we all knew it too. But somebody started and they took it very literally. We had FPVs and Mavics. That's where I shot down the Mavic. Why are we in the only bare area where there's no concealment at all? Why? And it was because somebody took it very literally. Don't do that. Think for yourself. You can move it 20 meters. He's not going to yell at you. I've also seen this in Iraq. One of them was the PKM nest that we had. It was the perfect bunker. It was just like a little slit in the mountain. There's no exterior dirt or rocks to go and give away the position. It was invisible. But our commander went there one day. They told us, don't dig that out. I want you to dig it out. We're going to make it into a mortar position. We're like, okay. So we dug it out, as they said. And about 2 weeks into digging it out, one of the other commanders stops by and he's like, what are you doing? Like, you ruined the bunker. And we told him what that person had told us. And then he switched it like, okay, actually, that. Try and make it back to what it was, which we could never do. It was already excavated. The drones were already watching us dig this position now. They know it's there. And lo and behold, it was bombed later on. So, yeah, that was this position right here. It was so dope, and then we ruined it because the commander told. Anyway, I hate that. Just try and speak up. Speak up if you think something's stupid. Most infantrymen in Ukraine will tell you that frag grenades are not the end-all be-all. They are not meant to kill the enemy. And, oh yeah, 5-meter lethal radius. They're dead. You know, if you throw in a bunker, it's false. Most people, they get a can like this, they fill with C4, they get a little fuse on it, light up, throw it in there. That's what you need to do. Make your own frag grenades or even tie them together. It depends on the frag too. There's some better German ones, I forget what it's called, but for most frags, they're not going to do the job that you need it to do. Learn when a round is meant for you and when it's not meant for you. This goes for artillery and as well as small arms. It goes for everything, as well as FPVs. FPVs, you can hear if they're coming for you or if they're just passing by. They're doing their own thing. And there's also a rhythm with it too. So there's a lot of times where we would be stuck in a place for hours because there's an artillery round that's coming every minute, okay? But if you learn that rhythm, you can find out when you can move to better cover. There's so many times when we get a couple rounds that are close. We get freaked out, we lay in the dirt for like a minute or two, and then nothing happens. And then 5 minutes later, it happens again. We'll be there for like an hour or two. When in reality, we could have moved, we could have learned the rhythm. How long does it take for them to reload or do whatever the hell they're doing, 20 kilometers behind the line, and then we can adjust to that. So that's just something to keep in mind. I've never actually done that, but I know that there is a rhythm. Like you can hear it in the combat footage, especially tanks. Oh my God, tanks are like that perfect example. They would only come like every minute. They fire a round and then they reload it, they adjust, they figure out where it's going, and then another minute goes by, and then they fire. So it's every minute. Tanks are like super rhythmic when they're firing or lobbing rounds at you. So just think about that. Think about that. It might be something good to know. And mostly if you're outside. If you're in a building, it doesn't matter. Rhythm, no rhythm, you're in it. But if you're caught outside and you hear a tank shell whistle by, finish up that run. Get to the nearest piece of cover. You got about a minute. And one of the coolest ones I want to talk about is something the Kurds did, which I found I found it necessary after the fact, which was for stationary weapon emplacements that have Dushkas, KPVs, just large weapons that are meant to be outside, wrap it in saran wrap. You can clean it every day if you want. But it's exposed to elements. It's exposed to the morning mist. It's exposed to rain, snow, and it's gonna get rusty. It's gonna get all clogged up. So what the Kurds would do is, instead of cleaning it every day, taking it out from the bunker, going there, they would wrap it in saran wrap. And before an invasion is expected, they would walk out there, rip open the saran wrap, and let it be. And I learned that lesson the hard way. I forgot about it, and then it snowed, and it got very, very rusty. Now I want to get into my favorite topic, FPVs. So there's a lot of techniques and a lot of stuff that I know about FPVs that probably you do not know, because FPVs are like a new thing and nobody really cares about FPVs except for me. At least my channel analytics say that, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. One thing about an FPV is that it's not like a Mavic, it's exposed, right? All the electronics are exposed to the elements, which means that water can get in there, short out, and it crashes, okay? Well, there's a couple ways that you can waterproof it. First of all, you can duct tape it. That's what I did in Poland when I was doing some training for NATO, and I duct taped it. Guess what? It worked. It worked. I had no idea. It was the first time I ever did that, but it worked. You can duct tape it around. It doesn't really matter. The next thing you can do is you can use like something like Aquaseal or an epoxy resin, put it over all the electronics, and it's gonna waterproof it, except for the VTX. The VTX has a fan to expel, so yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that would have to be not covered by epoxy, but everything else, it's fine. The next one I want to talk about deals with the software of the FPV. This blows everybody's minds, especially when they're trained in drones, like NATO militaries or whatever, when they find out that their jammers, that jam 2.4 and 5.8, don't work against FPVs. This is what it looks like. You can go down here to the video transmitter tab in Betaflight, the software program for FPVs, and you can change the frequency right here. You can see a band and a channel. Right here is the VTX table, the frequency tables. You choose one and it's good to go. It's that simple. And then you change the frequency. And now, like, if they're jamming 5.8, which is like the most common jammers you can get, well, they're on 5.3, who cares? And it also takes 2 minutes. Like literally, you plug it into the computer and you turn it on and you go. It's whack. All right, the next one I want to show you is the receiver. All right, right here is the receiver that is receiving the controls from the controller. And one thing to know is that they don't only jam the video signal, they also try and jam the control signal. So one of the most common frequencies that people use for this is 915. That's what this is on right now. Another one is 750. But if you go in between that, higher, lower, in between, you might not get jammed as much as you'd think. And it's really as simple as getting scissors and you cut it to length. I don't think people realize what some antennas like this one is. It's a piece of wire. It's a wire inside here, protected by a little bit of plastic, but you can take this off. Look at that, it's off. And you trim it to size. And there's a table online where you can find out exactly how much you need to take off in order to reduce the frequency. So this one's 915. If I wanted to go to 1.4, something really strange, 1.2, I would look online, I'd find out how many millimeters I need to cut off, and then I would cut it. Yeah, that's how we change the frequency on the receiver. Another one about the FPV, obviously there's different types of FPVs, but the most common is kamikaze. You have a bomber one, that drops bombs, but kamikazes, you strap the bomb to it, and then you just suicide the drone into it. Now, the problem with kamikazes is that if you put the wires on the outside, right here, if you put it on the outside, you won't be able to zip tie the bomb up. So what we do, one little small technique that we do, is we put the wires inside the frame, the motor wires. Instead of going out, which is easier to solder on, all you have to do is put these wires inside. That way you don't have any wiggle room when you're putting on a bomb. You don't want it to be zip tied to the motor wires, squeezing them, even potentially breaking the drone mid-flight. So that's a little kamikaze thing, but I thought you guys would be curious. Another advanced tip for FPVs, nobody likes 3D printed frames. If you can have a carbon fiber 3D printer, perfect. But if you're using just the regular plastic that you use for 3D printing, those are The way that we operated in Ukraine was we received mostly broken drones from units, and we just kind of make Frankensteins. That's how we made most of our drones. So we just kind of take apart the parts and we keep the good stuff. But whenever we got a 3D printed yellow frame, most of them were already broken. The legs or the ends here with the motors. Anyway, even if it was a perfect one, we would replace it. The frame has a lot to do with the stability of the drone, how it's gonna fly. It has to do with the durability. If you're testing with it, you don't want it just to break and gotta start over, bring everything to a different frame. And the frame also has a big impact on the battery. If the drone is flexing mid-flight from weak material, you're gonna have lesser battery life. You need to have a good carbon fiber frame. The next one has to do with a battery. 1 second. Battery. Okay, so this is an FPV battery. This is one that we use on this guy. Now, the issues with batteries is that in the cold, when it's really, really cold, wintertime, have you guys ever tried to use your phone in frigid temperatures when it's been sitting in your pocket, it's really cold for a couple hours, and then you bring it out and you find out it's at 10% battery. And when you're in the middle of taking a video, it shuts off completely. When, okay, I was at 20%, why did it just shut off? Well, batteries don't operate at that temperature range. It has a certain temperature range that it's functional. Without that, it'll just turn off. It just dies. Obviously, that's an issue if you're using batteries for a weapon like an FPV. So you put hand warmers, you keep them on your body so that the body heat will keep them warm. You do anything you can to keep these things warm because it has to do with battery length as well. You need to have a lot of battery to hit 10 kilometers behind the front line. It's a big deal. So that's it. That's all I wanted to go and talk about. I hope you guys learned something. I'm sure you guys did. I talk about a lot of things, especially the FPV stuff. Nobody really knows about this stuff. So thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys in the next one, and peace.